What's up guys, my name's Brandon and today Apple returns with the final public release of iOS 13.3 a little over a month after the release of the previous update, iOS 13.2.3. So of course in this video we're going to talk about what's new, what's changed, a lot of the bug fixes included with this update, the performance, the battery life, and how that compares to 13.2.3 and much more. And before we get into all of that, I do want to quickly thank Squarespace for sponsoring today's video. So if you guys don't already know about Squarespace, they are basically an all-in-one platform where you can easily build professional looking websites thanks to their huge amount of templates to choose from. So whether you want to start like an e-commerce store, a portfolio site for your photos, or a blog, whatever it may be, they've got you covered. They also have a great set of marketing tools and analytics for you to use as well. You can learn more about Squarespace and get started with a discount by clicking on the link down in the description below. All right, so iOS 13.3, you can see here the size of this update came in around 659 megabytes. That of course is if you did come from iOS 13.2.3, but that size will vary depending on your device and of course which firmware you did come from. If you were on the iOS 13.3 betas, you would just have to delete the profile, the beta profile, and then you should see 13.3 populate, but it will be a couple of gigabytes. But anyways, let's go ahead over and check out the build number for 13.3. Let's go to settings, general about 13.3. You can see the build there, 17C54. And if we go down a little bit further, you can see we do also have a new modem firmware update here as well in 13.3. It's 1.03.12 compared to iOS 13.2, which was at 1.02.18. So a nice big jump there in the modem firmware version, which will be great if you were having any kind of LTE coverage issues, any kind of issues with data, anything to do with connectivity. You could see an improvement here with this latest update. So now what's new in iOS 13.3? And there are actually quite a few changes and features in iOS 13.3. Now the biggest one is going to take place inside of your screen time settings. So if you go into settings and go down to screen time right here, you will see a new section there called communication limits. So if we go into the communication limits, you can see here we have two different sections here. So we have allowed communication during allowed screen time and then also during downtime. So if you're going to be using this to basically like monitor your kids and make sure they're not contacting, certain people after hours when they're not supposed to be, you're probably going to spend most of your time in during downtime. So if you go to that, this is where you can actually select allowed communications for contacts only or just specific contacts. So if we go to specific contacts, you can see right here, you can either add a new contact or choose from pre-existing contacts. And again, this is great if you're like trying to monitor your kid, maybe if it's not even a kid, maybe it's just somebody you're trying to monitor their usage and you don't want them to communicate with certain people after a certain time or on certain days. That's going to be a great use for this feature. But if you're not trying to monitor anybody, you don't have kids or anything like that, you're probably not going to care too much about this feature. Now, another new feature that you may care a little bit more about than the communication limits is the removal of the Memoji stickers in the emoji keyboard. So you'll notice now when I go to my emoji keyboard, I no longer have the Memojis here on the left-hand side. And that's because there's now a toggle in iOS 13.3. So if we go to our settings and then we go to general and then to keyboard and scroll all the way to the bottom, you will see we have a new toggle there for Memoji stickers. It says send Memoji and Emoji stickers from your emoji keyboard. And of course you can toggle that on or off now. That was a big complaint of a lot of people, myself included. I hated having the Memojis there just because I didn't really use them that often, especially when I'm going into the emoji keyboard. I would just wanted to use emojis. So that was really annoying to me. I'm glad that they added at least the toggle for you to turn that on or off. Another awesome change in iOS 13.3 has to do with trimming video. So if you go to our camera roll and go to a video right here, if you wanted to edit and trim this, so if you went right here and like trimmed it by a few seconds and clicked done, you can see now in iOS 13.3, we get the option to save video as new clip. If you did this in 13.2.3 and previous versions of iOS 13, you would only be able to save video and it would basically overwrite that video and you would just have the trimmed version and not the original and the trimmed version. But now in 13.3, you get the option to save that trimmed version as a new clip. This did exist before, but for some reason Apple took it away, but now it is back, thankfully. Now, one of the biggest bug fixes in this latest update has to do with loading attachments properly inside of the Messages application. So if you go to your Messages and you go to the little eye right there, and if you want to see all the photos and everything that were sent in that conversation, the screenshots and things like that and links, that would all pretty much just not show in 13.2.3, 13.2, and even previous versions as well. It would show like little error messages down there, or it would say that it was indexing or something like that. But now everything shows up properly. Apple News has a slightly new look in iOS 13.3 over here on the right. Of course, 13.2.3 here on the left. You can see we have the For You right there and just some minor changes in the way everything's laid out. If we go to news, you can see it is pretty much the same on the news tab right there, maybe a little bit different with the sections and things like that. And you can see down at the bottom, you now have a thumbs up and a thumbs down button right there, and also a quick little arrow to go to the next instead of just saying next. You can also go to previous here in 13.3 as well. So some nice improvements to the Apple News application. Also, if you look really closely at the Watch application in 13.3, it now represents like an Apple Watch Series 4 or Series 5 versus a Series 3, which was in iOS 13.2.3 and previous versions. So just an updated glyph there for the Apple Watch. And we do also have updated glyphs for the AirPods Pro throughout iOS 13.3 as well, whereas on 13.2.3, it would just show the regular AirPods in certain instances. So now everything is updated to reflect the new AirPods Pro. We also got a nice improvement to the transfer to HomePod feature. So if we go into our settings, go to general, and then go to AirPlay and handoff. Of course, we do have the new transfer to HomePod feature. This was in 13.2 as well, but it's now more reliable in iOS 13.3. And side note, the HomePod did also get an update today for 13.3, so you should also go ahead and update your HomePod. And speaking of bug fixes, we did also get a lot of bug fixes in the Mail application. Of course, the Mail application has been the most buggy app in iOS 13 by far, and we do see a lot of fixes here in this latest update. Things such as marking emails as read and unread is now reliable, and it works 100% of the time when you use two fingers like that. It works every single time. Also, when you mark it read and unread by swiping over, that now works every time, whereas before it would be very inconsistent with marking it as read or unread. We also have, if you 3D touch right here, or haptic touch I should say, and go to forward, and now works and doesn't crash the Mail application. We also saw things like in the notification center, if you had Mail up here and you tapped on it to go into that email, if you went back to the notification center, all your previous emails would be gone. They would just disappear from the notification center, but that's now been fixed, as you just saw there in iOS 13.3. And there were several other fixes for the Mail application as well. Here you can see fixes issues in Mail that may prevent downloading new messages, addresses an issue that prevented deleting messages in Gmail accounts, resolves issues that could cause incorrect characters to display in messages, and duplication of sent messages in Exchange accounts, and just numerous bugs like that related to the Mail application. So you should see a much better experience with Mail now in 13.3. And if we go back to those release notes here, you can see there is a fix here, which I've seen a lot of people on my comment section talking about, but I haven't had this in a while, but apparently it was an issue and it has been fixed. It says resolves an issue where cropping or using markup on screenshots may not save to photos. And then the other one I saw was addresses an issue that may cause screenshots to appear blurry when sent via messages. So both of those things have been solved. I've been seeing a lot of people talk about those on the comment section of my videos. And then there's another one here that I've had before, but it was fixed like months ago, but apparently it's not fixed for everybody. Addresses an issue where the missed call badge on the phone app may not clear. And then we have some issues related to cellular data as well, which was another major complaint with iOS 13.3, 13.2.3, I mean 13.3 in the betas, but hopefully the final version now does fix any kind of cell connectivity issues, any kind of issues with mobile data not working. I know a lot of people had an issue where they would basically turn off mobile data and switch to Wi-Fi. When they would switch back, mobile data wouldn't work. So overall, you should see a lot of fixes for cell connectivity related issues. And if you guys watched my follow-up video to iOS 13.2.3, my review after 2 weeks, I did mention 2 separate bugs that I haven't really seen anybody else on YouTube or anywhere talk about that I had. And I saw a lot of people in the comment section also finally reported to me that they had those issues as well. They just never said it because nobody else was talking about it, I guess. But those 2 issues were, number 1, notification sounds for texts would not always come through, or it wouldn't even light up my screen. So like if my screen was off, if I was just on the lock screen, sometimes when I would get a text message, my phone wouldn't even light up. It wouldn't make a sound, nothing. I didn't have do not disturb on. I didn't have notifications off, anything. It just would not even appear. It wouldn't make a sound or anything. And that was super annoying. But so far that has been fixed in iOS 13.3. I have not had that issue yet. Of course, I will let you guys know if that still does appear, later on down the road in my follow-up video to iOS 13.3. So definitely make sure you stay tuned for that. And then the other issue I had to do with playing videos on social media like Instagram and Twitter specifically. So basically, I would play a video and I would go back to my home screen, or I would go into another application and I would still be able to hear the audio from that Instagram or that Twitter video. And sometimes I'd even be on like a phone call and it would just start playing in my ear. But I have tested it. I've tried to reproduce introduced it multiple times in 13.3 and appears that it is fixed. Of course, I will have to do a little bit more testing just because I've only used iOS 13.3 for about an hour so far. So I will report back and confirm that it is indeed fixed in my follow-up video. So again, stay tuned for that as well. And then of course, a lot of people did have issues with their data and their Wi-Fi not working until toggling on and off airplane mode, and that would be the only way it would start working again. But hopefully that's been fixed for you in iOS 13.3. If you were having that issue, download 13.3 and let me know if it is fixed for you. All right, so before I move on to the performance, the battery life, and if you should update to 13.3 or not, here's a word from today's sponsor. So let me tell you a little bit more about Squarespace. So I've been making websites for over 10 years now, and I would pretty much embarrass myself if I told you guys how many domains I own and how many websites I've built. But the point is, making websites is tough and it's time consuming, but Squarespace eliminates the tough part and most of the time-consuming part as well with their all-in-one service. They make it easy for you to create a website and get the ball rolling without worrying so much about the coding side of things and making sure your CSS is lined up and things like that. You just choose a template to get started. So whether you want to create a blog, an e-commerce store even, a photography portfolio, or just, a website to put your name out there and your face out there, they have you covered with templates for pretty much everything. They also have some awesome backend tools as well, like a tool for creating automated email campaigns, SEO to make sure you rank well in Google search, analytics so you can see how many people are coming to your site and what they're doing on your site, and more. So if you guys want to create a professionally looking website, head on over to squarespace.com/BrandonButch for a free trial and 10% off your first purchase of a website or a domain. That of course will be linked down in the description below. And thanks again to Squarespace for sponsoring today's video. Now let's get back into it. All right, so as for the overall performance of iOS 13.3, this update should run more smoothly on your device since we do have a lot of those annoying bugs being patched up, and we continue to see improvements to the RAM management as well. So if you were having like RAM management issues, I have noticed that iOS 13.3 continuously improves upon that. I know 13.2.2 fixed that, but we are continuously seeing improvements to RAM management, and 13.3 is pretty much as good as it gets, as good as I've seen so far in iOS 13. So yes, I'd imagine this update will be better in terms of performance for most people. Even if you're coming from 13.2.3, you should see slight improvements in terms of performance, especially with the amount of bug fixes in this update. And of course, like I mentioned earlier, connectivity should also be improved with this update. We do have the modem firmware update, but I've also seen people in my comment section mentioning that both Bluetooth and Wi-Fi connectivity seem to be improved compared to 13.2.2 and 13.2.3. And by the way, they mentioned that in my beta coverage of iOS 13.3. So I would imagine that that would carry over to the final release of 13.3 as well. So if you were having any kind of issues with connectivity, it would be worth checking out this new update to see if it solves your issues. Now, as for the battery life, it has been great on all 4 of the iOS 13.3 beta, so I would expect the final version to also be the same, if not even better. So battery life on iOS 13.2.3 was great as well, so the difference between the two will be very, very minor, but I would expect slightly better battery life, if anything, of course, due to the bugs being fixed, the modem firmware update and things like that. So finally, should you update to iOS 13.3? And I say absolutely, you definitely should. Even though most of the changes are pretty minor, some of them could make a pretty big difference in how you use your phone and how much you complain about the bugs on your phone on a daily basis, especially with the save video as, save video as a new clip being back. I know a lot of people have been asking for that for a while now. So even just that minor change could make a big difference in your day-to-day life. And of course, there's a lot of bug fixes, a lot of fixes to the mail application. Of course, we have the screen time communication limits if you have kids, all kind of things to be excited about with 13.3. Oh, and of course, we can't forget about connectivity issues, most likely being solved for most people. So definitely really no reason not to update to iOS 13.3, of course, unless 13.2.3 was running perfect and you had absolutely no issues at all, which I don't think is the case according to everybody I've talked to. Everybody has some kind of issue with 13.2.3. So yes, I would definitely go ahead and update. Now, just a side note that I wanted to mention before this video ends, watchOS 6.1.1 and also, like I mentioned earlier, 13.3 for the HomePod was also released today with bug fixes. So today is a great day to update your iPhone, your iPad, your HomePod, and your Apple Watch all today. So always exciting times to be in the Apple ecosystem and have so many Apple products. But anyways, guys, that's pretty much it for me. That's it for iOS 13.3. Love this update so far. Can't wait for iOS 13.4 beta 1, which will probably be as soon as tomorrow. But yeah, that's iOS 13.3. I will have a follow-up video letting you guys know and confirming basically everything I said in this video about a week from now as well. So look forward to that. And if you guys did enjoy this video, I would appreciate it if you gave it a thumbs up. And of course, subscribe so you don't miss any of my future iOS update coverage. So anyways, guys, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you soon.